Okay, so I already did videos for Somewhere in Time and Peace of Mind, which are likely as not. No, yeah, almost definitely my two favourite of the Iron Maiden albums. Although if I had to pick a third, it just seems odd to talk about Maiden and then to ignore the primacy of the third studio album, The Number of the Beast, because again, like with Peace of Mind, I find it so interesting that Maiden have quite a number of studio albums at this point, yet the fans always come back to the classics on The Number of the Beast. And it's not just the casual fans either, it's not just because that one had the radio airplay or whatever. Iron Maiden are never a band with a huge amount of mainstream popularity at any given time, given the album's, kind of source material and the kind of mythology it delves into. It was not going to be a huge success at any given time in the United States, certainly, or anywhere for that matter, at that time, or probably even now, actually. And what you have is an album still revered by the fans as one of the greatest track lists in the history of Iron Maiden's discography and heavy metal in general. Now, I have to admit, I find it somewhat... it's understandable to me why this album has still seen the primacy in the Maiden's fans' favour, because as good as some later albums are, I quite like A Matter of Life and Death in particular. Final Frontier is decent. I think Brave New World's kind of good. I like Dance of Death overall, actually. It's pretty good. But the fans tend to think of the material from the first album up to Seventh Son as being the finest, and I can see that. There isn't a streak as strong after that, unfortunately. I'm not a big fan of the Book of Souls and the Senjutsu, unfortunately. I wish. But what we had with Number of the Beast was just the tracks were so strong that you had to and they were so strong at doing what they were going for, and if Maiden were trying to go for that again, you had the risk of repeating doing those songs again, or the energy which led to those songs, people wanting more of that. You kind of have to take where your intuition's going, which maybe is away from that, into more longer songs, and then kind of try and refocus your energy on something you don't want to do anymore. So there was no way of replicating the specific brilliance of Number of the Beast. And here's the thing, any drummer will tell you that Clive Burr's prominence in the group gives the sound a distinctiveness which Nico McBrain's it's a totally different experience. It's Clive Burr is the last vestige of Maiden's punk sound. Dickinson is kind of a bridge into the newer sound, but Nico closes the door on the punk rock, on that really raw Nwabum world, and new wave of British heavy metal, for those who don't know that silly acronym. And instead it moves into the more kind of intricate, complicated areas which would inspire the more technical or progressive metal bands, or the power metal bands with the long epic suites. Maiden become like the heavy metal band in many ways. Like when you think of, I guess Metallica may have been for a while there, although they kind of became the idea of like a kind of supermarket, kind of like, lunchbox, pencil case kind of idea of a metal band, but like a hardcore, but then like the teenagers' idea of like your older brother's idea of like a real heavy metal band was Iron Maiden. I think that's and they retained that. Like when in my youth and early teenage years, like that's the impression that came across. That Iron Maiden were the really cool band. Like that's kind of the one you're into, and that's when you're once you're into Maiden, that's your gateway into all the other cooler stuff. As opposed to, being into, you like Guns N' Roses or AC/DC or, God forbid, like Kiss or something, or even Metallica, as I inferred. It's an incredible sound on this album. Martin Birch, one of the great producers of all time, possibly the finest in the history of hard rock and early heavy metal. I'm going to go through the track list on here, and we're going to kind of describe how and why these songs are so strong, or at least why it seemed kind of fruitless, or they're kind of a despairing situation for Maiden to try and improve upon these songs. Invaders, in terms of like simple, punchy, and just anthemic, kind of cool Maiden, Invaders is hard to top. Children of the Damned, apparently inspired by Children of the Sea from the masterful Black Sabbath release Heaven and Hell, absolute masterpiece of an album, possibly my favourite thing in straight up, kind of straightforward heavy metal, if you will. I don't know, the early Sabbath I like a little bit more, but not significant. Heaven and Hell's pretty genius. Anyway, Children of the Damned is an example of Maiden doing a kind of slower, more sophisticated thing. By sophisticated, I mean, within the confines of kind of like, adolescent caveman heavy metal and kind of spooky gothic horror song. They do this and it comes across as though they're really interested in the subject matter, and it's not just kind of this goofy sort of, oh, this is what's expected of us shtick. The Prisoners just comes across as an orphan homage to a TV show they love, and like they really believed in the power of the show. They wanted to kind of borrow it for their own song, and it comes across, and they wanted to match their love and passion for this work of art, the TV show The Prisoner, with their own. It's kick-ass. 22 Acacia Avenue. I mean, this was the best Maiden song up to this point in time, likely as not. And it's almost, other than maybe Hallowed Be Thy Name, I guess, and The Prisoner, it's probably my favourite thing on this album. Even if it was just an instrumental, I'd be bowled over by it. And then the kind of sardonic and kind of sadistic subject matter just makes it one of the most evil and wicked songs in the Maiden discography. Just doing a kind of nasty, gritty song about horrible English underbelly, brilliant. They don't do that often enough. And for an English group, I think it seems like that was prime material to write songs about, that the rest of the world could be like, oh, that's interesting, unique, and cool. And mythology's great too, don't get me wrong, history books and all that. Frank Herbert's Dune. I dig. It's phenomenal. I wouldn't trade it for anything. A Number of the Beast, Martin Popoff describes this as sing-songy. It is an attempt at a kind of catchy anthem, although I feel like it has the powerful instrumental ferocity of a deep cut that they aren't expecting to pander to anyone with. I think the choruses are what they are, but they trick kind of a anthem-oriented listener into enjoying one of the most intricate and kind of indulgent solos in a mainstream hard rock or heavy metal song. I mean, for the most part, I know you say, lots of metal has indulgent soloing. Not songs that get as popular as The Number of the Beast. Anyway, Run to the Hills. This was a pretty big song. It's a pretty simplistic song as far as this album goes. It's pretty fun. I like the kind of boldness of doing a song about a subject matter as such, kind of Brits taking it to the Americans. That's kind of fun. I like that idea. And it makes for a... the only reason I think this song is repetitive is because it's 3 minutes and 50 seconds. If it was 2 minutes and a half, I wouldn't feel that way. Put it that way. Gangland is too simplistic for me. Love Clive Burr, but I don't know, it just feels one note compared to everything on here, and I don't have much else to say about it. Hallowed Be Thy Name. I feel like Hallowed Be Thy Name was I do get the feeling that there was a part of Maiden, Steve Harris, Bruce and all that figured, what if the old fans don't accept this? Then we're done. If there's some sort of like old guard loyalty, which you're an artist, you're insecure, you don't know what's going to happen, and they don't buy the album, and that's that. Now they were fortunate that they not only were able to pick up the old fans, all of them, and they continue to recommend it to get their favorite band to gain more fans. But more and more and more fans heard it in general. I don't know if it was the packaging of the art, the marketing, live shows, but Number of the Beast became an enormous album, and there was no way of, in retrospect, it's like, yeah, of course Number of the Beast was an enormous album. I don't think the band had any way of knowing that was a sure thing. I mean, what heavy metal band had gotten as big as Iron Maiden up to that point in time? Judas Priest weren't maybe, I don't know, were they Maiden big by like how big Number of the Beast was? According to anecdotes at that time, Number of the Beast was enormous. And so let's get to Hallowed Be Thy Name. The point is, if they expected the album to be as big as it was, I don't think you would expect to see a Hallowed Be Thy Name on here. This is an end of career. This might be our last song ever song. I dig it. I like that. It has that feel about it, and that's what I appreciate about this concluding tune. It's good stuff. It is straightforward heavy metal at the end of the day. It might be too satanic for some and all that. Well, that's fine, but Maiden may have released more progressive and interesting material afterward, but unfortunately, possibly only twice. I feel like Maiden don't nail that intricate prog metal thing. They do it pretty well sometimes, but they only nailed it twice, and so what you have come back to is an album which was more straightforward but kind of thorough and thick and rich in production, but it had the straightforward ferocity of the early material and the kind of in your face, the kind of anger of a more straightforward, punchy heavy metal band rather than one that was trying to show off its instrumentational arrangements or anything like that. And since Maiden apparently can never have such a difficult time at topping the Number of the Beast, maybe you could argue they were better off just trying to languish in that sound forever. But hey, they never would have been able to top. It would have been even more jarring that they could never top Number of the Beast if they had kept trying to accommodate that punchy sound. I mean, there was nothing you could do. Nico McBrain has a whole different style of playing to Clive Burr. It was what it was. It defines Maiden sound forevermore, I think. Still, you can come back here, enjoy this 39 minutes and 11 seconds of heavy metal goodness.